right, macro perspective peeps. It's me saying it this time, not Seamus. So today we have a special guest, and it is Cinthia Martinez of Latina Lifters. And she's going to kind of give us a little bit of an origin story, and we're going to talk about culture and nutrition. Mainly because it was actually one of our strongest performing reel posts, obviously with a collaboration with her. And we really wanted to talk more about that topic specifically in a longer form, kind of content and give ideas for people to keep their cultural heritage alive with food, health, space, and wellness. So, Cinthia, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of give a little intro.
Hey guys, my name is Cinthia Martinez. I am the owner and creator of Latina Lifters. We are a company and a community created in 2020. The idea behind Latina Lifters was to create a platform to share our voices and share our culture within the fitness community. I'm Mexican immigrant, and I feel like when I moved here, it was a culture shock, right? I mean, especially I think in Las Vegas, there's a mixture of culture, but you can get lost. It's easy to get lost and easy not to know who you are because you want to fit in, and you also don't want to lose your roots. But it is super easy to assimilate, and that is because you have to learn a new language. You have to again learn the culture and just especially as a teenager, I think you don't want to be made fun of, right? There's stereotypes, there's a lot of standards, there's a lot of society standard as a woman in as Mexicana, like if we are too Mexican because we're too Mexican, and if you're too American then you're whitewash. So that played a lot into my life growing up here in Las Vegas. And then as an adult, when I found fitness, I realized that a lot of the fitness brands showcase models and showcase what like a fit body should be like, and I didn't fit in that. I never did. I never really cared for a lot of like the motivation quotes and all of the designs that were printed on the shirts, and in general, like I never saw myself on the ads or on TV, and I just kind of got tired of it. I'm just gonna say it like that. I got tired of complaining. I got tired of feeling like I didn't have a space, and I created that community for that. It wasn't about just making money. It wasn't about printing shirts. It was about, having a place where you can be you. You can have all the attitude you want to, because I mean, that's a weird stereotype as, but like we need to remove the attitude as being a bad thing, right? Like we want to showcase the attitude, we want to showcase the passion and everything that we have and everything that we are as Latinos. So yeah, I created that in 2020, and I honestly had no idea that it was going to grow to be what it is today, and all the opportunities and all of the amazing things that has happened for my brand and for myself in general. It has helped me amazingly to really find a place and really find myself and own who I am and own, you know, um, who I really need to be. Because I feel like that's the end of it. It took me a lot of years to find, I will even say my look, right? Like who I am and who I present myself. A lot of times I get told, like, you portray this like persona. Well, that's who I am. I am this, attitude driven, FuerteAF Mexicana that I am. And I love to lift. And that is kind of like my pre workout when I go lift. And that's my passion. That's what drives me. So that's who we are.
Love it. I love it. I actually kind of commiserate with that story, or kind of connect with it a lot. Even though I have this pale complexion, I tell this all the time to the listeners. I'm like, I grew up in a third world country. All right. So I grew up in the Philippines, and I knew what that felt like coming here and coming to America. And I felt like I was like trying to bridge two worlds, because you wouldn't recognize it, but I had a thick Filipino accent. Like if you saw a video of me and you're like, who is this white kid with this Filipino accent? But like I didn't I didn't see anyone else that looked like me growing up. And it's weird because it's like I don't know how to say this, but it's like it's reverse racism, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
in the Philippines, I was made fun of a lot growing up, and then when I moved here, I did see people that did look like me, but then I spoke a different language, and the problem too was like, well, who am I? Like, what is my identity? Like, who am I hanging out with? And it felt really, it was hard to make friends. It was hard to make people. It was hard to meet. Because they asked, like, who is this guy? And like the way kids
Yeah.
played in the Philippines as the way the kids played in
Yes.
America way different. The social hierarchy was different. Like
Hmm.
I tell people all the time, my mom was a single earner parent. Like, I didn't have the things that other kids had, and like, well, it's such a weird thing. So I appreciate that story. Can you kind of go into, you were saying this a little bit more, but like you're saying, hey, I made the brand because there was people that didn't look like me. And I didn't like that. Like,
Yeah.
can you go more into that? Was your background in fashion or modeling, or like what was your background into before, or that like made you decide, okay, I'm going to make an apparel company or a community kind of like this?
So no, I don't have any background on fashion or clothing or anything like that. I am a makeup artist. I've been a makeup artist since 2012. I am thankful though. I feel like in the makeup industry, representation is huge now, and it hasn't always been like this. Like that's also a work in progress. A lot of brands are working towards having and showcasing models that are of deeper skin tones, are different cultures, that are not just like the perfect type of models. But I'm gonna take it back all the way to when I was young. Telenovelas. Everybody watches telenovelas. Everybody knows, if you watch Telemundo, if you watch any Mexican or just in general Latino channels, what do those women look like, right? They're perfect. Those women are small waist, big hips, they're just stunning. I'm not shaming on them. Absolutely, they're stunning, and everybody looks at them and they think, what does a Mexican girl looks like? What's a Latina looks like? You're gonna think of J Lo. You're gonna think of Selena. You're gonna think of Salma Hayek, right? Well, we don't all look like that. And I'm going to add on to you, like the skin tone thing. Colorism is real, and that reverse racism is absolutely real. It's still within my culture of what a perfect Mexicana is supposed to look like, or a Latina is supposed to look like, right? So if you are of darker complexion, you are going to be called certain names. You're not going to be put on TV because they're going to call you all sorts of names, and that's not considered like the beauty standard within my community. So even when I was younger, looking at those actresses or the novelas, or the magazines, I never looked like any of those women. And even within my own family, the first time I encounter any kind of like body dysmorphia was because I was 10 and my aunt told me when my waist wasn't small enough and I need to be put on a diet. I was 10 years old
Oh,
and I was told I need to be put on a diet because my waist to hip ratio
oh,
wasn't to standard. So
I
it is. I got chills. I'm just gonna tell you. It took me years. I still go to therapy, and I talk to my therapist about these issues. But this is real, and it still happens. Ortias will still judge us for our weights. Ortias are gonna tell you you're too skinny, you're too fat, you're too this, you're too
yeah,
that. So that whole idea of what a woman's body is supposed to look like, or what we're supposed to look like within Latino community, and I know women in general, right? It started at a very young age for me. So then when I moved here, and like you said, making friends and trying to fit in a group of, do I hang out with the Mexicans? Do I hang out with the Americans? Like, I listen to all sorts of music. So my style didn't fit in with the kids that were Mexicanos or the kids that spoke Spanish, but also I didn't fit in with American kids because I didn't speak English. So it was extremely hard. And then I started growing up, and then I started lifting, and I started seeing the ads, and I started seeing a fit body, and it did not matter how small I got, I still did not look like what a fit body should look like. I still didn't look like the ads for, the leggings or the sports bras. So all of that kind of played a lot into it. And like I said, even at the beginning when I got the idea of Latina Lifters, it wasn't just necessarily about making shirts. It was about showcasing what we look like, which is, I've still posted Latinas and we still get Latinos being like, she's too white. Honey, no, we don't have a space
oh
for those
my,
kind of comments. Or
yeah,
she's too masculine, right? Like, it's 2023. Can we stop pretending that muscles are for boys? Like, come on.
yeah.
So
No, I mean,
that's where my background with that started.
I appreciate you
That,
sharing that. I appreciate you being honest about or vulnerable about the body dysmorphia and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we share that in Filipino culture too, where like the titas and titos, they're like, "Hey, you're looking fat," and it's like, "Well, it's because you always want me to eat the lumpia, okay? Like, what do you want me to do?"
Okay, but lumpia is delicious. Who doesn't want to eat the lumpia though?
But it's such a hard toxic thing because even in your own culture, dang, it sucks to even have your own family, your own culture go like, you're still not good enough. It's like, dude, what do you want
Right.
from me? Like, I'm out
Yeah.
here, I'm getting healthy, I'm out here, I'm working for myself. what else do you want from me? And then I still have to go through the trials and tribulations of
Right.
making it in the real world with these Americans, maybe with white folk or other folk.
Right.
Like my girlfriend, she's small Filipina, like 5'4", 5'3", clinical dietitian. The clinical dietitian ratio of Asians is like 3 to 5%, and then like for them to be Filipino is like 3 to 5% of that 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
to be that person and then to go against all those odds and then still get crap from your family, like, yeah, not good enough.
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want? You know?
Right. Absolutely.
It's funny because, one second, sorry, Cinthia.
No, you're good.
You one, for those listening that might be on the whiter side, Tia and Tio and Tito and Tia, or Titi, whatever you said, Seamus, for your iteration of that.
Yeah.
It is our aunts and uncles, right? For those people that may not be so ethnically inclined. I'm sure, but everybody has like a nickname for their, their grandparents and things like that. I think of I call them my titis, right? Because I think I had a stutter or whatever, and I didn't have Spanish upbringing, though that side of the family, we had all those just general traditions when we would go there. The same thing. It's like, I mean, the standard of like the sharing of the culture in that community. When we would go to Ohio and I would see them, it's weird. You guys are talking about like this immersion of culture, right? And then America being this melting pot, and then here I am. Actually, jokingly, my parents gave me a nickname of a Spixillian. And so Sicilian and I know, hilarious, right? Like, obviously we know Spic is definitely a derogatory term towards a Hispanic person, so we would lean into it. You're like, hey, whatever, we own it. So like that was like an inside joke amongst the family. We obviously don't typically tell people that. Honestly, it was the password for a lot of our usernames back in the day, because no one's probably guessing that. And the fun thing about that, though, is like you said, like, who doesn't want to eat those things that are like uber delicious and have that thing? But then you also have that other standard of the culture. And again, like, well, then how much are you even having of that? Are you even enjoying it? Right. Or are you like secluding yourself from that moment because you have that other kind of body standard? And I love my tias. And, realistically, I've noticed, like, as I've gotten older and I do this for a living, their eating behaviors are very, very weird, very different, right? Because culturally they were expected to be that type of image that you just mentioned, very, very thin, right? And they've always been like rail thin, right? And they're also very smart. They're educated. They're, nurses, and they've been in the medical field for a long time. And, sometimes I'm like, man, like, having the understanding of like nutrition and some of these other things, and like, again, more about wellness. We're not even going to say that it has to be like that general archetype of like someone on TV, but again, how many people are actually in Hollywood? Like 0.0001%, right? There's like 3,000 people that are constantly being iterated into these movies and different things. Of course, the portrayal is not going to be the actual American average. So, I mean, I think nowadays what you leaned into about like, let me build a community and culture, because realistically, this is probably a more realistic body type for the masses, right? And how do we service them? Much like Barbell Apparel, which is another Vegas local brand, essentially, but it's blown up. But like, hey, we're going to make jeans that fit athletic builds, right? Like, who has a hard time fitting into these jeans, right? Same thing. And it's like, and again, like, they're capturing, quote, a niche, but there's a large percentage of people that, again, can either relate to some degree. They may not be full-fledged, purebreds like myself, right? Again, I'm a mutt. I'm a mixture of a lot of cultures. And I didn't realize how good it is to actually have that growing up, because the different influences and seeing all these different things actually help shape a whole new reality, and understanding kind of what you said. Like I don't look, again, you don't look white, you don't really look Hispanic. I think a lot of times people are like, as the beard gets longer, my wife's like, you kind of look Persian, I was like, yeah. So it's a very interesting thing, but obviously you built like a tremendous thing so far, and you're not stopping anytime soon, right?
No, I can't. And I think it's still even surprising sometimes when I make posts. I'm not talking about the one I posted yesterday, which says strong girls need to eat. And there was a comment there. I'm not calling this girl out. She said, that she has to convince her husband that that's what she needs to eat. And to me, like that resonates of why I can't stop, right? Even if it's one follower at a time of hearing that, like you need to eat to grow, you need to eat to lift. And there's people out there still that think like, well, if you eat, you're gonna gain weight. Like, it, first of all, it doesn't matter. Stop worrying about your weight. But the fact that you have to convince other people that you need to eat, like to me, and you talked about, your tias having, their nutrition or their wellness is being super crazy, right? How people eat. Most people actually don't even eat a lot of times in the day. They just eat really large meals, right? They don't have the understanding of what a good nutrition plan should be like. But in general, to me, it's just so crazy to read those comments of like, yeah, I have to convince my husband that I need to eat, or I need to, fight with my family about how much workout I'm doing during the week because I'm getting too masculine. I'm growing, you know, like my muscles are growing too much, or they're no longer like it. Like there's so much to do for me and for us. And every time I talk about Latina lifters, I say we, even though I'm the sole owner of it, because it doesn't feel like it's just me, right? Latina lifters feels like it's just owned by every single girl that posts and reposts and likes and shares, and all of the videos that we are putting there and all of the girls that support us. Like to me, we are doing this, as a group, as a movement. I always talk about like there's 40,000 followers, there's 40,000 girls that are ready to jump on this, and we're ready to like continue to fight this fight because there's still so much work to do. There's just we're just at the surface. We're got a long fight still.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think it's that norm that we have to fight. I think, like you said, the telenovas and social media, or even like just movies in general. Like it's
Yep.
so easy. I mean, I talk about this all the time. I think one of the big reasons I got into the field of health and wellness was body dysmorphia. And I think there's a lot of unrealistic portrayals out there of how a woman should look, how a man should look. And you're getting into the minds of kids at a younger
Yep.
age now with social media or how it's portrayed in school. And it's like, you got to be very careful with how you portray that. And if you're not being realistic, you can put a lot of kids on a hamster wheel that they're never going to reach a
Yep.
conclusion on. And it can be detrimental. I mean, I know for a fact for myself, like I tore my whole body just trying to hit performance goals, right? And winning matches or a physique. And it's like, I wish someone came in when I was around like 13 or 14 when I started that journey and went, hey, you don't need to hit the red zone 24/7. You've got to eat. You've
Right.
got to make sure you fuel up. Hey, you don't need to be doing three workouts per day as a young teenager going hard. You could be smarter about your programming, smarter
Yep.
about how you eat food. It really, I really wish, more people were speaking upon this like you're talking about, because you're right. 40,000 people scratching the surface of
Yep.
how realism should look, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of adding on to what you're saying about, your younger self, and you wish somebody would tell you that. That happened to me too. I was at a point where I thought like I have to lose weight. I have to be as small as I could be in order to be, because I was doing CrossFit. So I wanted to be small. I was barely eating. I was eating 1,200 calories a day. Okay, I'm 5'8". That is that's nothing. And I was running
The
a mile a
usual
day. And I
400
wish
calories a day.
Yes. Oh my God. And I wish somebody would have just slapped me and be like, girl, what are you doing? You are messing with your body. You're messing with your hormones. And I think, it's hard. It's a hard reality that, obviously as a person, you don't want to go up to somebody and be like, hey, you're not doing all right. But I think also as a woman and as a friend, and as a person that cares, it is important to sometimes have that conversation, those tough conversations with somebody and say, are you okay? Do you understand what you're doing to your body? Do you understand the long effects that this is going to have on your life? I'm still paying for that because
Yeah.
my body is still recovering from that and I still struggle. And then, it goes into you working out, not longer because you enjoy it, but because you're punishing your body for what you eat, which is absolutely so fucked up. Sorry, I have my fucking cuss.
No, no, you're
You're
good.
good. You're good.
I
But you
talk
know what I'm
about this
saying? Like, that is terrifying that you're
all the
punishing your
time.
body for what you ate.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
talk about this with my girlfriend all the time, and she goes like, for example, the weekend, like my mindset still kind of falters into some quote unquote bad ways of like, all right,
Right.
it's like negotiating with myself. If I'm going to do this weekend, I'm going to have to do
Right.
this or this. And it's kind of like this whole puzzle in my head of like, but at the end of the day, it's like answering an extreme with an extreme.
Right.
Can you just go ahead and go eat that,
Right.
whatever it is you're going to enjoy, whether it's more food,
Right.
or it's a treat. I usually like ice cream.
Right.
If you can go get that ice cream, not eat the tub and then kill yourself with 5 CrossFit classes the
Right.
next day.
Yeah.
Just have that ice cream, and guess what you do the next day? You just go back
Move
to
on.
doing it.
Yeah, just move on.
Move on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So funny.
And I think all of our missions kind of are one and the same in the sense of like building up the education we didn't get around our bodies at an age where we were most impressionable. Because I mean, the creation of a lot of the ideas that I've come up with has been a result of like, man, I wish I would have had this at 14 and 16 and or 18 or 20, where I was very impressionable, just looking for the right, group of people to inspire. And I look back and I think I may have mentioned it here or talking to somebody else, but Jay Cutler, so bodybuilding, Jay Cutler, obviously like he's did most of his training in Vegas, like the old LVAC and Gold's gyms and whatnot. He came in and talked about like his nutrition, and when I was in 8th grade. So I still remember him coming in, discussing things, talking about it in a sense that like, well, look at this guy. And again, like that's obviously portraying a very unrealistic expectation as a male, right? Because he was like, that was him like winning Olympia like status days. And I'm like, whoa, like this dude's telling me he's eating. He's like, I go to Costco, I don't buy like a case, I buy the crate, like the whole thing. I literally roll it out on like the whole dolly. And I was like, it's a lot of eggs, And then after gaining the education of it, I was like, that's really a lot of eggs, when you like actually know how many calories it actually ends up being. But he spoke about it in a way that was like obviously reflecting to me as a young kid that like was just being inspired with training. It's like, oh yeah, fast forward now, it's like, okay, well, there's some other things that were going on there that obviously he's not going to tell an 8th grader about, like his drug cycles or the things that he was using and a variety of other things that were obviously allowing him to eat to that capacity, right? And grow this particular thing. So again, like us coming in and again, trying to be like resemblant of healthy, right? Because I think, it's on a scale, right? We have sickness, we have healthy, and then there's fitness. And fitness again is a state you're constantly kind of pursuing. And it might be their phases of dieting and trying to lean out a little bit because maybe you're going to get ready for that beach vacation and you want to look a little bit better, which is fine. But most of the time, most people should be living in a period where there's balance, right? And or the pursuit of growth, right? Like you mentioned, like getting stronger, going into the gym, having that mental clarity and like that willingness to get in there and not feel like you're dragging ass and then injuring yourself and then, the hamster wheel of all those things that come. Yeah. So another question for you though, like, so what's your favorite food? Like let's go quote healthy. Like, what's your favorite healthy food? And then what is your favorite kind of like interpretation food where you've now made a healthy, like a healthy spin to it / like if you're just going to eat something like garbage, is it like, tacos from like a local place that I need to know about?
I don't necessarily have like a healthy food, like a favorite thing, I guess. I cook a lot. I love to cook. I love tacos. Just gonna fit in the stereotype that I eat tacos almost every day. But so have you guys had birria yet? Birria has become very popular.
I haven't had any birria.
I got you. I just made some last week. I gotta tell you. So if you go to a restaurant, so birria is usually, it's either made with goat or beef. It's cooked for several hours. It can be very fatty. It can be very oily. You just make tacos with this. Sometimes they like fry them and put some cheese on it. And then you dip the tacos. Have you seen the videos of how you dip the tacos into the consomme, into the I can't think of the English word. The juice.
It's like the rendering. It's the fat rendered. Yeah, it's the rendered fat. Yeah.
So that's actually one of my favorite foods. I still go and have it. I love going to the swap meet and having, some birria tacos with a michelada. But because it is very fatty and there's a lot of cheese and there's a lot of fat involved, I have learned to make it myself in the crock pot. And then I have control on how much fat goes in it. I have control how much cheese if I do decide to make the tacos. But like you said, I have learned to have that balance. So now, even if I go and have birria tacos with with a michelada on a Sunday, I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna enjoy it, and then when I make it at home, I think my birria is legit, but I'm just saying. I'll make you some, and you can tell me. But yeah, so that is one of those foods that I do enjoy and love very much, and I can eat it almost like every week and just love it. But you can make it in a more, healthy way. If you make it home, get a chuck roast, you decide what goes into there, and then you have more control. If you decide that you want to measure and do all of that stuff, you can. But in general, it's just meat, right? You can put it in tacos, you can put it over rice, you can make it into a
Yeah.
salad and nachos, however you want to. But that is one of my guilty pleasures, is birria right now.
But it's not even guilty because you literally just described exactly what somebody should do from
Yes,
a nutrition
yes,
angle. Like,
absolutely.
if I'm
Yes,
going to control this thing and I need it multiple times a
yeah,
week because it's like my
yes,
favorite thing and it's like my go-to, there are little sacrifices
yeah,
that don't really, detract from the flavor because that's all in the
right.
seasoning, right?
Yep, it's all in the
And
seasoning.
and you're like, again, you're curating and creating these things, and
Mhm.
again, a lot of people are like the only way they've ever had it is like you just said, going to the swap meet or going to
Right,
Taco Taco or whatever
yeah,
other like restaurant in town.
yeah,
And we know going to a restaurant, well, there's a lot of things associated with that, right? Like, one, it's way higher in cost, so you're going to spend way
right.
more. Last night, my wife went to Taco Tuesday over at Pinches, and she was telling me it's $5 a fucking taco. I was like, good thing I didn't go because I would need this fucking 10 of them.
Inflation, bro, it's real. Tacos are expensive now.
Taco
I know it's
inflation.
like it's like gourmet street taco. It's like yay big, right? Like
I
it's
know.
nothing. And
Yeah.
she's like, I ordered a carne asada burrito. It was $20. I was like, were you satisfied? She's like, no.
Where
She's
is she
like,
going for this?
the Pinches over on over in the west side,
Oh,
Pinches. Yeah.
man.
So it was like, well, you go for like the ambiance and the culture and like the vibe, and I was like, well, nah, like. Like I was like, well, like if you were to rate it, and she's like, I honestly wouldn't rate it. I think what we make at home is way better. It's like, oh, like I mean, imparting flavor in cooking
Right.
is like a labor of love. And okay, look at whatever you may have been making with your grandmas or
Right.
people, because we're all relatively in the same age category here, right? Like, think about what they're doing, and then how do you reinterpret it, right? Like you just
Right.
said, you're like, get a chuck roast or get something leaner. Pay attention to like the content
Right.
of it. And again, like if you're not a type of person that wants to log and put this into like MyFitnessPal or any tracking app, at least then there's again the selection of the quality has
Right.
been to a place where it's leaner and actually a protein source and not like fat with fat with fat,
Right. Yes.
right? And I think articulating that message to even your community is like, you don't have to lose the foods you love, you just have to reinvent them slightly,
Yeah.
ever so slightly, but when you want the real deal Holyfield, yeah, make it on a Sunday, maybe do it every 2 weeks versus every week, right? Simple enough.
Yeah, I think actually even in our culture we do cook a lot. We do.
Yeah.
For me, I myself am allergic to pork, so I don't have to worry about cooking with lard because most of our
Mm.
meals are cooked with lard. So even just removing the lard from everything you're cooking, that's already a huge difference. But yeah, I mean, we do love to, like you said, for the
Mm.
experience of going out to eat. I mean, I love to eat. I love to try new restaurants, but yes, I mean, food is getting expensive. I mean, everything's getting expensive nowadays. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna go eat a $20, burrito, it better be some good ass thing, not something that you can
Wow.
make better at home. That's for sure.
Yeah, she went for the camaraderie. That was the best sounding thing for the price point because she knew how little the
Right.
tacos were. And
Yeah.
again, I was like, that again, sometimes you do it for the experience. It's not so much the
Right.
cost, but like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
nonetheless, like a lot of people are generally budget conscious of stuff,
Right.
or again, they're like, well, it was just a little bit. Well, that little like one single serving taco easily could have 20 to 30 grams of fat based off of like what you just described, which for most people could be potentially half your daily intake,
Right.
and you just are like, well, I needed 4 of them. And then people wonder why, like, well, it wasn't a lot of food,
Yeah.
but like density,
Right.
just having a lot of calories with little, fulfillment, so to speak, in terms of like the gut, right? But that it's also where learning to create the recipes or create like little renditions. Like, of course, like if it's holiday time, make the real thing, right? Like, do that, celebrate the events, right? And hopefully you're in a phase where you're actually trying to like build good mass, like you've mentioned, like getting stronger in the gym so that you can enjoy it to the fullest. And again, the next day, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's a little bloat and inflammation, whatever. But like, I think of my grandma's pastelillos, right? So the empanadas for Puerto Ricans. And I mean, when I would go back to Ohio, I'd have like 10 of them a day. You know what I mean? Like an absurd amount. And now I'm like, I haven't had one in, it feels like a decade, and I want to recreate it. It's like, again, you can use lean meat, you get all the seasonings, you get everything in there, impart it with like this frito, you throw a bunch of stuff in there to get like the actual flavor. Now the question would be like, do I choose to fry this, or can I use an air fryer, for example?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Can I brush it with some of the oil so it cuts some of it out? And then how good does it taste? Maybe the crisp is off. All right, cool. Maybe I need a different dough recipe and stuff like that. But like, I think the other thing, maybe it's different for people that you're, communicating with, is I'm running into people that don't know how to cook shit. Like, like if you have some semblance of culinary skills in this day and age, like people are like, where'd you learn to cook? And it's like, I don't know. I just turned on the stove and like fucked up a few eggs a few times and burned a couple things. And it's amazing. But like, in a more Hispanic centric culture, I feel like that's actually tends to not be the issue, because they're generally cooking with, abuela. They're generally, it's generally something that they're just, it's part of the culture, right? So you actually can lean into that even more, which I think, I'm just going to say it, most of the people that we run into in our practices that we work for clinically, they tend to be of a wider demographic, right? And they're like, well, how do I make something taste good? And I'm like, do you know how to
seasoning?
cook?
Gotta season it.
Seasonings and herbs, guys. Yeah, thank you. Right?
There's something I was taught. There's this town that I used to train people at, and it's pretty much like the whitest town I've ever. It's kind of near Pasadena, in SoCal, and it's like they have this place. It's like a Middle Eastern store, but I'm like, have you guys ever just gone to like a Middle Eastern store and just gone through the spice rack and the seasoning?
Wait. Quick aside, Seamus. That may or may not be Dr. Mukhtari's dad's store. Just saying.
Yeah, like, maybe I don't know, but like it's like I tell people all the time, I'm like, this is why I love Middle Eastern food, for example. I'm like, why is it the best? I'm like, it's just meat and veggies and some rice. Like, why do I love this? It's like, have you seen like the seasonings
It's
that
all
they
in
put
the
on
seasoning.
that? Like, and I just tell people, I'm like, just go on the spice rack, play with all those things, have fun with it, and next thing you know, like anything that you eat, it's just so much better. It's easy to kind of like, and I think someone said this in a stat once, like in a book that I read. He's like, once the average American gets set with their like food, they only have like 7 to 11 dishes that they rotate. Like once, if they just don't change anything, and it's like, like they eat the same thing for breakfast, lunch, maybe dinner's different because it's date night or like the kids want something different. But it's like, when was the last time, not even culturally, but just like the average American, like, did you try to cook something new? Did you try some new recipes? Did you try to healthify your culture from where you're at, whether you're, white, Hispanic, Filipino, Puerto Rican, whatever it is? Like, when was the last time you tried to do something? Because it is kind of hard, right? Like with a busy schedule, how do you stay healthy, or how do you put the healthy spin on things, right? And then, but yeah, at the end of the day, with our clients and things like that, it's like, well, how do you keep it healthy? How do you keep it enjoyable? How do I get good mouthfeel? What's the texture like? How long does it take to prep? Like, do I have to prep this all the time? Like, crap. I'm like, I don't know. So it's a Marcos and I go back and forth on this a lot. Like, how do we make this more seamless integration into someone's life, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to even too when you mentioned like how, like healthy meals, right? As soon as people hear healthy meals, they think rice, plain chicken, and broccoli. Like, I'm just gonna keep it super basic. I'm sorry. I'm sure that there is a small percentage of people that can eat that every day. I cannot eat that every day. I get bored. I don't even like eating leftovers. Like, I love cooking different things every day, even though, like you said, I do rotate through the same dishes because that's what I like to eat. I like my flavors. I like certain foods. But a lot of people have the idea like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet. Therefore, I'm removing all seasonings. I'm removing all flavor from my food. Well, that is just not possible, because the moment you start doing that, you get bored with your food, and you are probably going to want to go out and eat more often than you probably would if you were cooking with more flavors, where actually you were enjoying what you're making at home, right? Because if you're enjoying what you have at home, you're not going to want to go out and eat. I'm just being 100% honest. I myself did not know how to cook. I was raised by my grandmother back home, but my grandma loved to go out and eat. She loved getting dishes. She loved bringing us food, birria every Saturday for breakfast. My grandpa loved bringing us seafood on Sundays. We were really spoiled. She just didn't like to cook. I mean, she raised her kids and then she raised her grandkids. So at that point, she was probably like, I'm done. So I was not taught how to cook. Everything I learned is just by looking and seeing people cook, or just kind of getting curious and just getting curious in the spice rack. That's all you're gonna do. You gotta pick up a couple of different seasonings and play with them, and different vegetables, and jalapenos and tomatoes, so everything we eat in the Latino community, and then just got some flavor. But yeah, I was not raised in a household that taught me how to cook. But I mean, I do have a kid, so obviously I couldn't just feed him chicken nuggets and mac and cheese every day. So I learned how to cook, and now he is 12 years old and he knows how to cook too. So I make sure that I'm passing on to that, so that he enjoys when he's cooking, and he enjoys his food, and he understands flavors, and he doesn't have that trauma of having to eat plain foods in order to be, healthy. We don't
Oh,
use that here in this household.
no, and that is so amazing to hear that you've already like sat down and like gone in the kitchen with him, even though you didn't know how to do it originally. Because
Yeah.
I mean, one of the missions I have with the nonprofit for that we're working on is getting more of an immersive experience with cooking and cuisine with kids, especially with parents that tend to have jobs that might take them away from being home for extended periods of times. Again, a lot of parents and individuals might have to hold down two jobs to support their family. We get that. Hell, I got like two or three, to make sure that my family lives a comfortable lifestyle as well. Nonetheless, your kids could be, the place where you come home and there's a meal cooked, but you have to be willing to expose them to cooking and understanding, temperature and how to do it safe. And at first you're probably putting a probe in it and whatever. But next thing you know, like, again, like, it's hard to like, quote, make ends meet, but you're eating out every night. Right. And then we just talked about how expensive a taco is, let alone like, other meals that people might get that are, again, they're probably be, I'm going to eat Chipotle because it's healthy, right? Like they're getting these other options.
Right.
But if you can lean into your kids and show them how hard it isn't, right? And all to teach them flavors, and hell, just turn on the freaking Food Network. I learned most of the bullshit that I do because I was just watching Chopped. I was like, that's a good idea.
I love that show.
And you learn so much. And I'm like, we had Andrew on. He talked about like the basic. He talked about it as like notes. Like once you learn a song, you basically understand the structure of notes, and flavor is very similar. You have to play with salty, sweet, savory, umami, sour, bitterness, all these different things. And, everyone's palate's different. But then when you tinker and you experiment, it's a fun project. It's honestly something that, while I do have like the staple things that I can go to and just whip it out, no problem. I like the experience of experimenting with, like, if I try this one instead. What if I blend like this Kinder's or Kinder's, whatever the name of the brand is? They have like a fajita mix with like the Trader Joe's one. I mixed the two together. I was like, holy hell! Like this one had a little bit of lime in it, and this one didn't, and that like put it all together. And now like that's like my go-to like taco seasoning blend. Versus before, I was like, I'm just using this packet. And of course, your palate's gonna get bored eventually, and there's always Old Faithful. But when you do start making just the little tweaks and nuances, that's like, again, I don't consider myself, quote, a chef, but like, then next thing you're undergoing, again, organizing or trying to do it from scratch. And you just learn, you're like, okay, like I don't need to do it from the step one and follow this long list recipe. There are other companies out there, that are, putting these different like flavor profiles together intentionally, and which ones are like best. But the kid, I think the kids are really untapped with like their potential. I mean, you've learned a second language. You have a superpower, like amongst our culture. I wish I had a second language. I'm sure Seamus has a little bit more.
I wish. I'm so mad. Here's a story for everyone on my Tagalog. I came here when I was 7 years old to America. I was born here, but like 2 weeks into being born, like my mom sent me to the Philippines. It's a long story, but like 7 years later, I came back, and my mom put me on ESL English classes after school, and like I was doing like 2 to 3 hours of extra English every day because she wanted me to fit in. It was awesome, but what happened was after a year of doing that, I remember a white lady comes in and she's like, "Hey, you're gonna come with me. We're gonna do a translation test," and she speaks the most elegant Tagalog I've ever heard in my life, and I'm like, that was so beautiful. And like the dialects, because there's multiple dialects and actually multiple languages, like 100 plus in the Philippines. But she spoke different dialects, and she had the tone and the speech patterns down and the voice. And I just didn't understand anything. And I lost. I'm being honest with you, like it was brainwashed out of me, and I feel bad because
Yeah.
like I'll go to the Philippines sometimes, and you know, like I can understand, I just can't keep up a conversation like I used to, and I'm like, I gotta get it back, Marcos. I gotta get it back, you know.
No,
Well,
that's so real though. That happened. I mean, that happened to me, and it happened to a lot of Latinos in general. Like, at the beginning when I would go back and visit, the same thing. I moved here. I went to the ESL program. I got here January. I think by September, so my sophomore year, I was already in the English classes, which I was still struggling, with English, but you want to learn, right? So you want to be efficient in that language. So all you're speaking, my, TV, music, even with my brothers, it was just English.
English.
Everywhere I went, it was
Remember those little
English. So
phonics VHSs or like the cassette tapes?
yes, yes, I had the Inglés sin
Starbucks.
barreras. I had
Yeah.
the Inglés sin barreras, yeah, to learn. And the entire summer I spent, I was 14. Instead of being out making friends, I was learning the language. So it became like, it became my mission. Like, I'm going to be fluent. And then it became my mission to get rid of my accent because I didn't want to be called out for it. So that's where,
Yeah.
I talk about assimilation, and I talked about wanting to sound. This is an amazing book, by the way. It's called "You Sound Like a White Girl" by Julissa. You guys all got to read it. It happened to me. I didn't want to sound Mexican because I didn't want to be made fun of in high school. So I worked so hard to get rid of my accent. I worked so hard to stop talking with my hands like I'm doing right now because I didn't want to be called out. Like, I remember being in class talking like this, and a girl grabbed my hand and brought it down. And it was so embarrassing to me that I'm like, oh my God, like I need to tone it down. I need to tone my Mexicana down
Oh,
so then I don't get called out. So I lost a lot of Spanish because of that. And when I went back home for the first time after years of not being there, they made fun of me because
yeah.
my Spanish was horrible. And
Oh,
I mean, I still sometimes have a moment where I'm like, I'm talking to my grandma on the phone, and I'll be like, I'm trying to tell her something and I do not know. But also, and I'm going to tell you this too because it happened to you. You moved here at a very young age. So my Spanish was as far as a 14-year-old Spanish will go. I don't have all of the education and all of the verbiage that most of my friends that grew up in Mexico have because make fun of me. I did not know how to say vacuum in Spanish because we didn't have a vacuum growing up. So how the hell was I supposed to know how to say vacuum in Spanish if I've never used one, right? So those little
Yeah.
things
yeah.
that my Spanish stopped at 14, and I moved here and I started speaking in English, and it just switched to English, and my world switched to English. So yes, I lost a lot of my Spanish, and now because of Latina Lifters, and now because I've had to do podcasts and interviews, and I read so many books, my Spanish is better, and my family tries not to make fun of me, but it's just the honest truth. Like
It,
we move here and we want to be here. How do we remain over there too? You know what I
it's
mean?
odd.
It's hard.
I speak about it a lot now because like in my work and when I travel, I see a lot of Filipinos. I feel like Filipinos are taking over the world. Like I went to New Orleans last year and I was like, there's a bunch of Filipinos here. Like, are you travelers? No, they're like, I live here and they're speaking Tagalog. Um, I, I hate it. I hate that. Like I try to drill that out of me because in the real world today, people actually root for your differences. They really
Yeah,
root for it and they want to
yeah,
see it. They want to see it in the workplace. They want to see
yeah,
it in the culture. They want to see it. But you're right. Like I think we just kind of oppress ourselves because we're like, well, we want to fit in at a younger age. Like when Marco said, being impressionable, like we're just trying to do
yeah,
everything we can fit in and just realizing like,
yeah.
looking back, you're like, man, I wish I kept a lot more of that culture. I wish I really did. I really wish I
Same.
kept that
Yeah,
language. I really wish because I mean,
Yeah.
I speak to my titas and titos, and I'll speak to my, my grandpas, and grandmas, and all that. And it's like, we're going to the Philippines this year, and it's like, I don't know. They say this thing in the Philippines,
Yeah.
and if any Filipinos are listening, it's like they go like, "Oh, nosebleed. Oh, you're making my nosebleed because I have to think too much in English to speak to this white man in English." And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like,
yeah.
I actually know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but like, I don't know. It's
The,
even with that cultural appropriation of like if you go to the Philippines right now, you'll see more Starbucks, Sonics, In and Outs, whole lot like all these franchises in a spot in like a mall area than you would see here. And yeah, they're speaking a lot of like, they're speaking a lot of English and stuff like that. But I'm like, even then, I'm like, I still want to touch the culture.
Absolutely.
I want
Yeah.
to be in that ethnic culture,
Yeah, I told my wife, I was like, I want to move to somewhere in Europe. And she's like, hell no. And she's like a southern white girl, and she's like, oh, I freaking hate my accent sometimes. And I was like, babe, like say lie. And she's like, lie, right. And I'm just like, and she's like, you're making fun of me? I was like, no, it's like, I love the fact that there's like differences and you have the twang and not necessarily a draw, which is two different things, right? But like, it's what makes it unique. I was like, damn, like, I feel like technically I do have an accent. Everybody has one to a degree, right? But I'm like, it makes you unique. It makes you you. And I mean, just like both of you, like you have immersion in your culture when you're in Mexico. Seamus has immersion of his culture in the Philippines. Dude, I bet you if you were there for 6 months, you'd pick up on most of that stuff. It would come back.
I would. Yeah. When I was there,
you just need to blend.
Yeah, when I was there for a month, I was like already like kind of like, all right, like having conversations. But it's just as soon as you don't assimilate, as soon as you're back in your day to day with your work and it's just right?
Yeah, and I mean, I actually feel like I might be doing my son and daughter a detriment that they're not having that other like communication skill. Then again, I wonder, like, because of the advent of the internet, like, will a lot of these other cultural languages eventually become a little bit more of a dead language because there may be like one universal one now that everybody's so interconnected, right? Like, is it a blend of all these like fun, whimsical things, a la your brand, like FuerteAF? It's like, all right, cool, like
it's Spanglish here.
But it's cool because it's like, okay, strong, right? Like, but I actually prefer the word fuerte. There's just certain like derivatives that different languages choose to take that you're like, that actually, it has multiple meanings. And if you look at like the Latins or the Greek kind of etymologies of words, right? It's crazy because like they have like 4 different words for love and they all mean something a little bit different. So like, I feel like fuerte is almost a step above strong, right? Like to me, I don't know why does that hold that power to me? Well, again, maybe the Hispanic background. And then I also just like that I can roll my R's, but
he's like, I just want to show off.
Yeah. I try to get my son to like say rojo, and he's like, like he just stumbles on it. I was like, white boy. I was like, you're a Puerto Rican, bro. You have a 25%.
I love that.
So you got 25% Hispanic in you, and you can't do it. And he made a funny video with me last night. He's like, Dad, you're being super sus. You're acting like a Puerto Rican. I was like, yeah, bro, I am Puerto Rican. So are you.
That was so funny. I was like, where did this kid come out of?
The personality and a half on that one. But, I mean, I wonder. There's going to be a lot that changes as technology gets more integrated, as you have the ability to communicate amongst these different cultures. But, man, there's just something beautiful to different languages and hearing the fluidity at which people speak and shit. Sometimes the speed at which my aunts yell at each other and my grandma, I'm just like, there's something going on here. I'm picking up every like 4th word. Someone's mad at something. Someone did something with a dog. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like that's about as far as my.
It's the tone. So it's the cadence. So Marco, it's like I'll listen to, because like we live with my lady's family, and I'll listen to the mom and she's speaking in Tagalog, and you can just tell right away when it's like she's complaining because it's like a lower tone and she's like saying and all this.
Yes.
And then when it's a higher tone, it's not that it's necessarily a bad thing. She's just saying it really fast paced because she just wants to get it out there. But then there's a tone where everything is like, oh, that's bad. That's really bad. And you don't even know the context. You just know.
You're like, someone's.
I just think we just talk. And I think in general, Spanish is more of I think it's a very passionate language for me. Like there is just some words like you were talking about, like fuerte, that hold more power, right? There's a lot of words. And even when I speak in general, like there's no way to translate them to English that will make sense. It just, okay, maybe it will make sense, but it does not hold the same power. It doesn't hold the same meaning. Yeah. Like even for me, like I have a Spanish therapist. She speaks Spanish. She's Mexican. Because there's some things I gotta tell her that if I say it in English, I just can't. So a lot of the verbiage that we use with Latina lifters are in Spanglish because some words are they're just better in Spanish. I'm just gonna say it. Like this just sounds better in Spanish, and we speak with passion, just like we talk with our hands. Like you said, you were able to tell on their tone of voice, on when we're excited, when we're mad, when we're happy. We can't hide it. Like we're very expressive people. Like I myself I can't hide what I'm going through because my face gives me away. And you know, when we get really excited, we speak really fast. But that is part of who we are. That is how passionate we are about what we speak or what we do or whatever we are. Even the cooking, right?
Yeah.
Cooking is a love language for me and for a lot of us. Like we put so much love into what we do because we take pride into that. We take pride in our cooking. We take pride. I mean, everything we do, we take pride in.
Yeah, we all become just so critical of ourselves. But again, like that's why the lifting culture is such a great place to start so much of life. My parents looked at me as I was into my fitness journey at like 18, you know, off to college, back home afterwards, and they're like, "What are you gonna do? You're like really into this CrossFit thing." I was like, "I don't know, but it just seems to make sense. Like it's showing me perseverance. I'm going through failures. I didn't make the final event of this event. Fuck, like I'm not good enough."
Yeah.
But I wanted to do more. And cooking and you know was part of a similar thing. Like my mom was like, "You want to go to like culinary school?" I was like, "No, there's no money in that." But again, like, I
Yeah.
love me trying to like create a rendition and then like sharing that with the family. Like they're like, "Where did you come up with this?" Like I don't know. I watched a YouTube video and just decided like today I would, you know. And we did this for a family friend's birthday. I was like, you know what, like. I've never made like a classic like French cuisine like mother sauce. I was like, what do I need to start with? And so it's like you got to make this base of a. It's escaping me, but basically you like use some cooking wine, you know, a decent quality wine. You reduce it down with like you know bones and like beef broth and all that stuff, and from there you then can create like a multitude of other sauces. And a lot of cuisine does that, where you have like a base, right?
Yeah.
It was a demi glaze. That's what it was. And then from there I'm like, oh, like by itself, it's like very actually the way that I created it, it was fairly high in protein. I was like, shocker, like you know, who knew? And then you know, but like it was the experience. It was like it was a whole day event, you know, and a lot of things that like are that labor of love and dishes that again you are generally sharing amongst it. They do take a lot of time, and so like again, like you know, when you're in it and when you do it for the first time, I was like, whoa, like now I actually appreciate. It's like it's just like whenever you start paying people to do certain things for you, you start to appreciate it more if you've gone through it, right? So now if I go to a restaurant and I'm analyzing that particular sauce, I was like, this is like a 24 to 48 hour process to get this end product on the plate, right? Like, and I was like, yeah, I didn't like it. Mine was better. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. But at least now I know like how long that will take.
Yeah. We love that.
Yeah.
No, I think like you said, even the appreciation of what other people do, you know, when you have done it yourself, it's a huge difference. I mean, I love cooking and I love, you know, going out to eat in general, but I do the same. You know, I am going to not saying criticize,
Yeah.
but just in general being able to tell like, hey, you know, I've done this, I can do this at home, or I can put my own twist to it. Even if just putting your twist, not necessarily better, but better for yourself or better for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
When it comes to CrossFit, just gonna tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with CrossFit. But it is that very stubborn Mexican side of me that gets me through my workouts because we are competitive people. And it's just kind of like, I hate that I'm doing this and I'm gonna complain the entire time, but I'm gonna get it done because at the end of the day, I'm gonna feel better about it. So
It's a love-hate relationship.
I think, yeah, I think it's just a good, you know, a lot of people, what is it like, hard times create tough people or hardened people or whatever that quote goes like. But
yeah,
you know, CrossFit, you're subjecting yourself to this. You're actually choosing to be in this state where you know it's gonna suck. Especially when you first start showing up and you start looking at the wads of the day and you're just like, yo, I'm gonna suffer through this. And then when in the moment, like you're processing so much, like high heart rate or your breath rate, and you're like, okay, like I only got to do this, and in your head you're like, I'm doing 10 and 5, or I'm gonna do 5 or you know 8 7, and like you're playing this constant mental game of like how you need to break it up to a point where you can get through this in the most efficient, safe, and effective way possible. And it's something about like thinking on the fly like that for people that like when you introduce that stimulus, it does carry over into so many things of life. I think there's a lot of perseverance that I've learned through the CrossFit journey because again, like, I mean, just when you think you're getting good, there's someone better, you know, and that's just how it is with everything in life. And yeah, like it, I mean, in any fitness journey, it's really like that. I started here and now I'm here, right? Same with whether it's, again, interpreting a recipe, creation of other things, creating a brand, struggling with things, creating a business. Like, I mean, all those things are massive undertakings that you don't know if they're going to be successful out the gate. And obviously, like for you, like, I mean, did you imagine having 40,000 people following your fitness brand, not even your own personal brand per se? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you personally, right?
I mean, I've never been a social media person. I don't consider myself very like, out there. I didn't really like to post or anything like that when I started. And I'm gonna tie it back to CrossFit. Because within my gym there was a lot of Latinas, there was a lot of us, and we had just this amazing thing going, right? Like doing classes, like we would yell at each other, we would support each other, we would cheer for each other. And that was also part of why I wanted to create Latina Lifters, right? Why just keep this at my gym?
Yeah.
Why just have this awesome group of Latinas just empowering each other when we can put it out on a scale and see what happens, right? So, I mean, I had maybe had 1,000 followers on my personal, Instagram, because I just had my friends and, coworkers. I've never been big on like posting, like I mentioned earlier. Um, but as we started posting and that like community aspect of it started happening, it grew even more in my gym. Now at the gym, we're like, here comes the Latina lifters, right? And then it empowered other people beyond just my culture or beyond just the Latinas. Like, not even the dudes, even the dudes will be cheering for us when we're deadlifting heavy. And I think that is something that it does happen in CrossFit gyms that a lot of people don't understand, right? Like they hear CrossFit and they're right away like injuries, or you're hurting yourself, or they're gonna post videos of people doing bad reps, or you're just doing stupid shit on social media, which we all do. In any fitness that you do, there is people that are gonna have bad form. There's gonna be injuries, gonna be all these things. But that beauty of that community that CrossFit gyms have to offer was one of my goals to have for Latina lifters. That is happening. Like if you go to a post of somebody lifting, you see all the comments of all these girls and now guys too joining and just empowering and cheering. But no, I had zero idea that we were gonna go from the 100 of my friends that follow Latina lifters at the beginning, and then strangers that, and now I consider my friends that I've never even met, that are supported from day one, to 40,000 followers. And or even I went to the CrossFit Games I think 2 years ago to cheer for a friend, and there was a girl wearing my shirt that was an ex-potator, and I was like, can I just hug you? Like, I need a picture with you. Like I came all the way to Wisconsin to run into somebody wearing a FuerteAF shirt in this massive event. And to me, this is huge. You know what I mean? Like that was a huge moment for me, and it's still a huge moment. If anybody texts me a picture of somebody wearing the shirt out in the wild, I get excited because again, social media is powerful. We can reach so many people, we can reach so many countries. Like we've shipped in a lot of places, but I feel like it's still sometimes, to me, it's just a baby community. To me, it's just a baby brand. Like I don't see it as something big yet.
Can I ask? First off, thank you for sharing that. I mean, anything that you create out there creatively, and if it's out in the wild, it feels so good, right? You're like, oh,
Yes.
the giddiness. Can I ask, like, a little bit more of the day-to-day? Like, you said, hey, 2020, grown in the last 3 years or so. How does the day-to-day look running an apparel company or overall?
A lot of people always tell me, and I'm not shaming on people, but most people don't really know, and they would be like, "You're so lucky, you are your own boss." Like, I want to fire myself sometimes because it's a lot of work. Like, it's never ending work. I feel like my brain is just forever running on new ideas and what's next, on how to grow this, on what to do better. I'm always analyzing the data. I'm always looking. I have two phones, my personal and my business, and I wish one day I will learn to leave my work phone behind for 24 hours without looking at it, but I can't. I'm a mom. I also have a job on the weekends. I'm a freelance makeup artist, and I'm a business owner. And sometimes, when my son's away to his dad's house, I'm still a mom. It's the same thing. As a business owner, even on the days that you're off, you're not off. Like, I'm always working. So from the moment I wake up, I'm on my phone. I am scrolling through social media. I'm reading comments. I'm replying. I'm looking. I am analyzing data. I am thinking of what's next. I am emailing designers. I am trying to draw. I can't draw to save my life. That is just not a talent I have. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I am constantly on the move. My life is it's a lot. But I am thankful for that.
I mean, that's a lot for sure. I mean, let me ask like a little bit more, if I could, if I may.
Yeah.
Like how how big is your team? Is it a lot of freelance? Is a lot of your stuff made in America or like local, or like
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
set somewhere else?
So
Or
one of the missions that I had for Latina Lifters was to ensure that we continually support our community. So most of the artists that I work with are local artists, minus one girl, and she's actually a childhood friend of mine who's now a tattoo artist that lives in Mexico City.
oh,
But most of the artists are Latinos, and there are Latino artists that live here in Las Vegas. And that is a way for me to give back to the community too, and continue to support other small businesses, right? Because when we post one of the artists that created, Trust the Process, which is Juan Perez, he's an amazing artist. Now we are sending business his way too. Now people want to go and support him. Now people want to follow him. And if you guys are familiar with my design, La Fuerte, it is the Loteria sticker of the girl carrying the barbell over her head, was
yeah,
created also by a Latina artist here in Las Vegas. Her name is Libby. And again, when I pitched this idea to this artist, I'm going to tell you what's so amazing is that they understand this isn't just a shirt design or a sticker design. They understand the power that that design is going to carry when a little girl sees it and says, that looks like me.
yeah,
And that is why I work with those artists. And that is why I work, I have this group of artists that I continuously work with, because they fully understand the meaning behind those designs. We're not just pushing designs just to make money. We are, every design and every, word that we put in our shirts, I want it to mean something. When somebody tells me I PR today because I was wearing my FuerteAF shirt, that is what I want to hear. You know what I mean? I want to hear that shirt empower you to feel fuerte, or deadlift heavier, or when it says siempre sore, it's okay to be sore. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to have those moments. Like, that is why, I work with those artists. But yeah, most of those artists are local artists within Las Vegas, or the Latino community in general.
that's
So
that's pretty
good.
awesome. I
Love
mean,
it.
it sounds like you guys are scaling hard, scaling fast, and it sounds like you're still doing like some of the makeup stuff too, and you're still being a mom and stuff. How, my question to you, because I know Marcos and I will get into this one day, but like, how do you like balance like being able to delegate that or letting go of some of the things? Like, I know you're giving these artists an opportunity to
Yeah.
showcase theirs, but like, how come you haven't been able to put the phone away, right? Like it's for 24 hours.
Well, I go to therapy. That my therapist, Michelle, I love her. If she's listening, I mean, we have obviously set boundaries within my business and time and days off. And in the last couple of months, like, I picked up hiking, and I solo hike, and you don't have a choice when you solo hike because you don't have internet. So that has helped me a lot to have, my self-care moment or my time to be able to just give out that control, right? To say it's out of my hands right now, and now being able to take vacation. I did get yelled at my last vacation because I was working in front of my friend, but I'm thankful for that, right? Call me out. Like, I am allowed to be me. I'm allowed to stop away from being a business woman and a mom and a worker and just be Cinthia, which is hard. It's really hard. If anybody has kids, and it's hard to disconnect from being a mom. It's the same thing as a business. Like, that's my baby, and I want it to grow. And most importantly, yes, it is just a short business. So there's no fires. If I don't answer an email, nothing's going to happen. So it has been a battle, and I'm not going to lie. Some weeks I do really good. Some weeks I can't put my phone down, but it is something that I do work really hard on. And especially like when I'm at the gym, like, the gym is my alone time. The gym is for me. The gym is not for my website or for Latina Lifters or for social media. And now I just recently opened applications for brand ambassadors, and I allowed several girls in my team. Now we have, I think, 8 of them. That has also helped me because now they're helping with social media, and now I have a team I can rely on. So I don't have to be constantly posting. I don't have to be constantly looking. I don't have to be constantly, checking my phone, because I know this girl's got my back, right? Like, this whole team, all of those girls are amazing, that if I just send one text in the morning of what the expectation is for the day or for the week, they got me. So now I also have an assistant who helps me with a lot of those things. So yes, giving out control, it's hard. And this is 3 years in the making. And to me, this is still very new. But now I'm also thankful I have friends that own other companies or own other businesses that we can discuss this. How do you handle the pressure? How do you let go? What are your best, moments of self-care? So learning what worked for me was hard. But I think, again, it's a work in progress, like we all are, and it's just something that I've slowly learned. And now my business phone's on silence all day long. So that helps me because I'm not constantly hearing the notifications to be checking what's going on, or. So I make the choice on where and when I'm going to work, which that definitely helps.
Man, that's the delegation aspect, the relying on others, the like building a team. I think so many people have articulated that here recently, and it's really kind of what me and Seamus have been. I guess why he's coming into Vegas tomorrow is to talk about next steps. Because as much as like interactions like this are great, you can spread a message, you can talk about things, but like creating actionable things sometimes in a virtual world are very difficult without true FaceTime. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But again, like there's things that I'm okay at and good at and great at. And there's things that Seamus is great at, good at, okay at, and things that we always need to like kind of like lift up and figure those things out and wear multiple hats. And like you just said, like your assistant calling you out, your friend calling you out, you're doing too much. You're supposed to be taking a break, right? Like you just said, you're not putting the same thing with nutrition. It's like, look, there's no such thing as a macro emergency, except for one time. I can have one instance where I had somebody that actually was eating disordered to a severe level of anorexia. And I've, to this day, this story is embedded in my head. Where were you, coach? You didn't message me this weekend. You told me to eat extra food. And I told this person to eat half an extra scoop of protein powder. And that was enough to trigger her to throwing up because of her true eating disorder. So I'm like, if there is a disordered level of eating and someone comes in with my initial intake, I know not to even tread there anymore. Like, hey, you need a different level of professional help. Like, I'm here to help you with mindset, motivation, health, yada, yada. But nonetheless, it's like, it's all anecdotal and learning. And like you just said, like, sometimes it's kind of addicting. You kind of like waking up and knowing, okay, like these are my checklist things to do for today as said owner, kind of mapping it out. And again, like there's nothing wrong with like, again, people are like, oh, you shouldn't access your phone within the first hour or whatever. It's like bullshit. Like at least then I know like there's nothing really pressing. I can take stock and inventory of that, or this is the first thing I need to do on my power list or whatever. So again, like, I mean, this is the way we all have to operate these days. There's boundaries and expectations. There's what you want to do. Like you said, some days you want to fire yourself. I've been there in the last couple of weeks. But I mean, it's a growing thing. And like you just said, like now you're taking on this whole new angle of growth and you're like, I should have probably had influencer people in my space to help me with my posting long ago. You're like, but you weren't ready to give up that, control. We like that a little bit because you want to, it's your baby. Like you said, you want to really curate it to like your message first before other people get their hands on it.
I love that. I love that. Like you have to set your boundaries, but you have to reach a limit first. I coach a lot of men sometimes and like younger guys, and they'll ask me questions like, because I have set routines and I have set things, and they're like, well, what are the routines that you need to do this, 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 and this? And like, they'll be like younger guys, and they'll be like, well, I want to have a business one day, and I want to do this, so I want to have practice reps now. I want to put hard things in front of me. I want to wake up this early, only sleep 4 hours, and do this, yada, yada, yada. And I go like, for what? You don't have anything worth doing. Right. You don't have anything worth you losing your sleep over. There's no like actual hard thing for you to do. Yeah, it's good to get practice reps and practice some stoic principles of like getting some reps and understanding that, but it's gonna flat out gas out because you don't have a deep sense of purpose. Like Cinthia here, who is a mom, a business owner, she's feeding not only her child, but she's feeding a team, their mouths, these influencers, and this is the moment where she's gonna hit a limit, and that's where the hike is that much more important. That's where the 7 to 8 hours of sleep is cherished. It's not, hey, I'm just getting practice reps. It ain't practice no more. It ain't practice no more. This is real life. This is real life. So you have to, I think sometimes people need to recognize that like you have to push yourself in certain seasons and go hard AF. AF, like hard just until you get to the point where like, actually, that's not for me. And I just had to stop with Marco. I spent the last 3 to 6 months banging my head across my computer trying to do something that like I wanted to do it. I felt like I could do it. I got some great results doing it. But then 6 months came in and the fruition just wasn't there. And, I guess I just have to phase out of that, or I have to have a different boundary with that specific thing, And now that I have that boundary, or I know what I'm doing now, I'm like, man, I can take a breath, like I can take a breath and I'm not tripping about all these things, So Yeah.
Seasons of life, man.
I
It's
just I
all
just
about.
think that, oh sorry. Like,
No, no, no.
I think people are so afraid, or it has become very, I'm gonna use the word toxic, that people believe that rest means that you're lazy, right? They
Mhm.
believe that if you're resting or you're not doing anything, you're wasting time, right? Because you have to keep working. But like you said, when do you reach your limit where it's enough? And it's happened to me. I've worked so hard that I don't rest, and then I get sick, and then what?
You don't
I'm
do
have
any
to
of it.
Then
stop.
you're
Then
F
I
more.
can't do
Then you're
anything. Yeah, so it was important for me. I remember one of my friends, and when he said this, I don't think that it resonated as much as once I got sick and then I couldn't do anything. He said, "I've never met someone whose life is so chaotic like you." And I laughed about it and I thought it was just funny, but in reality, it wasn't funny
Yeah.
because we talked about, I am a mom, I do split custody, but I have my son Sunday through Thursday. And then I work in my freelancing job Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then I work in my company a week. So when am I off, right? Like, I'm not. It was like
No.
that for a while. And then I'll get sick and then I couldn't go to work. And then I couldn't even take care of my son. And then I couldn't even go work out. And then I had nothing left. So it was at a moment where I'm like, okay, I need to figure something out because this is obviously not working. And in the long run, I'm going to have a meltdown and I'm not going to be able to continue to run this amazing community that I can't give up. So I talked to my amazing boss where I freelance with, and we cut down my hours. And she's great at knowing that if I need a mental health day off, I can be off. I started solo hiking where I take my self care day. I go and hike by myself and I come home and I make myself my favorite dish and I eat it and I feel so good about myself. I now give myself at least full days off a week. Some days, some weeks it doesn't work, some weeks it does. But I don't longer feel guilty for resting and just laying on the couch and doing nothing. I'm
No,
allowed to do that.
I love that.
Everybody is. I'm allowed not to work out if my body feels trash. I'm allowed to just stretch. I'm allowed to go for a walk. Like the idea that you have to push yourself to your limit every single day is just bullshit. And I feel like
Yeah.
it is important, especially, for people to talk about it. Like people, oh, you're a hustler, or you have a business, you have to work hard all the time. No, you don't.
You could be
No, you don't,
smarter. You
because
could be smarter
you
about it.
can work smarter and you can have your rest and you can continue to grow. And hustling does not mean you don't get to rest and you don't get to, sleep. It
Yeah.
does not.
No,
And believe me,
100%.
I'm saying all of this and I'm saying it to myself because I have to
Yeah.
A
believe
reminder
it
too.
because I have to
Man.
remind myself to slow it down sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm fast paced, but I
It's
do
funny.
have
It's
to slow
as
down.
much as like we're in the podcast biz and like I take in so much content. Like I'm like a voracious person of like content, but a lot of it is like I tell Marcos, a lot of it's just like mental masturbation. Like if you really look at the health and fitness world, like
Yeah.
really think about it, like it's a lot of recycled content. It's just you're saying it differently so that like people could get that like, oh, I resonate with Seamus and Marcos a little bit more, right? But I personally myself, I mean Marcos, I think Marcos does this, but like I walk every day and that hour, maybe 30 minutes or 20 minutes split up a few times per day away from my phone, I'm like recharged talking to me. I'm like, what does Seamus want to talk about? Not what does this podcast want to talk about? Because as much as that podcast is probably going to be good or the audiobook's going to be stimulating or this new YouTube video, I've gotten away from all that YouTube spirals, the doom scrolling that like it's so easy to get into that and not listen to yourself. But when you do listen to yourself and like today, I took like an hour walk in the morning before I got into my work zone. I was like, that was probably the best walk I've ever had in my life. I got super crystal clear on a lot of things. I knew exact action steps I'm taking from this day on. And I didn't need a podcast to tell me that. I didn't need a YouTube video. I didn't need someone else to tell me that. Sometimes it's just getting away from the busy work, getting away from the day-to-day content. It's so easy. I mean, I'm even saying this, and we're podcast people. But it's just you need to recreate your creativeness, So
Yeah.
um
Yeah. You're so funny. You're like, yeah, I got away from podcasting, but I made two today.
no, exactly. You made I love that.
But
Yes, come on, you gotta repeat it.
but he got the stimulation. It's funny because you get the stimulation from conversation, much like basically what we've come to find out about like people that do listen to things like this is it's like you said, it's a community. You feel like you're there, right? And that's what we're all in search of. So he's like, hey, like I just like you, we want to create that similar community experience. And just like you just mentioned, flying out to Madison, seeing somebody wear your shirt, You know, hell, Vegas is your hub. Vegas is your people. Create a community event here. Hell, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much to be said about, like, I know you went to the competition and you had your booth there, but like, you know, just post something. And the same thing, like, you're like, I want local people or people that have like some level of influence to be a part of what we all do, help each other out. Like, you know, it really is like familia at the end of the day, right? Like, we're really all like that. Anybody that's a client of mine, if they have a service they can provide, they are the first people I try to go pay, because I want to pay it forward to them, just like they're helping me with my small business. And it's like I think it's just like a really small business mentality for a lot of people, because, hey, those people can help you in so many ways. Some people have even asked us, how have you got some of the guests that you've had? And it's like, well, funny enough, we just have started conversations, and one led to another, and we're just talking. We're just literally, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We're just out here having fun and learning. And this, you know, like this thing is, again, an hour and a half time with people and hearing their story, letting them talk about it, get the message across. And yeah, I mean, I know you said you were nervous about coming on here because you thought you were going to have some Spanglish coming in. You're such a liar.
I did.
Somewhat. Nothing. I mean, you didn't say aspiradora.
I'm so glad you know the word. No, I think it's just, you know, again, I have my speech down, right? My Latina Lifters speech down, but when I get to be me, I get nervous. Like, what is it going to be asked about me, or how to, you know, word it to where the message is coming across. But kind of going into what you said, I feel like other business owners, small business owners, are most likely to help you. Like, I've met some amazing people by just sending them a message. I know you and I met in person, right? But I remember when I saw you guys' podcast, and I just kind of like slid in your DMs, and I'm like, you know, you're really cute. If you guys talked about this, and you guys were like absolutely down. And it's happened to me. We just recently did a collaboration with Kind of Fit, Kind of Fat, and me and Dean have followed each other on social media from probably, you know, early on, since Latina Lifters was very small. And I love their message because they talk about that balance, right? Like, you don't, you know, we need to start, you know, kind of step away from, you know, putting the fitness into what a body type should fit in. And, you know, we all fit in that group, and we need to stop putting shame on people, and everybody has different goals, and, you know, you can eat whatever you want to eat and enjoy it. Stop, you know, putting that in your head. And the same thing. It was just one of those things where, you know, for me, it was like, oh my God, they're such a huge brand. You know, they've had years on me. They have, you know, they have a huge community. How do I get in there? You know what I mean? Like, how do I? And it took a message for him and I to start talking, and for us to realizing that we both have a similar, you know, message that we want to put across with our community. And I went to LA, I flew into LA to meet him in person, and I felt like I've known him. Why? Because we can talk like this, and we've all had similar experiences. We have, you know, similar traumas, cultural traumas that nobody talks about because they're too afraid or embarrassed. And we had this amazing collaboration. We created this amazing designs together, and we had the photo shoot, and everything was so organic, you know? And that's what I mean. Like, it is so much easier as a small business owner to understand what the other small business owner is doing, because you know how hard it is to be like, I got your back too, because I know what that's like. You know, I know what the life is like, and I got you. And I met some amazing small business owners here within Las Vegas at the Arts District that I've just gone into the shops and I introduced myself, and they're like, oh, you're the owner of Latina Lifters. To me, I had no idea they even knew who I was. But the fact that the community, and not just Latinos, but like the small business community, want to support each other, yes, because that's how it should be. That's the power, again, of social media and what we can do for each other and how we can support each other, not just, you know, within Las Vegas, but in general. If you have a small business, or if you have this idea, like, don't be afraid. Believe me, the strangers on the internet they're willing to help. They want to support.
I mean, that's the whole point of the macro perspective. I feel like the first 10 episodes you could go back to them, was just Marcus and I shooting the shit. But as soon as, like, I keep going back to this episode, as soon as we got DP Gates on, I just don't know what frequency we were putting out there. I don't know what vibration, what entanglement we were at, but, like, we've just been attracting the people that have a small business, or they're serving the thing, and every single person has had that similarity of being a service, helping and just making things happen, and they're pushing the agenda as a small business or an entrepreneur. And we just want to share that with the world, because it really, business and personal development, when it comes down to it with this podcast, they're just so hand in hand. There is no other personal development like going into a business, going through all the stuff you need to go through. And like you just said with your life, like as a mom, as a business owner, as a delegator, like you can't develop a business unless you develop your person. And
Yeah.
it just takes that much more person. But I love this conversation. I just want to make sure I am respectful of your time, Marcos. I respect your time. We are coming up on like 90 minutes. I just want to make sure. Marcos, is any other last questions you'd like to ask Cinthia, or anything else, Cinthia, that we should know about? Maybe a launch of a new shirt, a new campaign, anything like that?
We don't have a launch yet. We just launched in July for our summer drop. We are prepping for August, but we don't necessarily have any dates yet. But we do this fun Halloween in July usually. But now it got pushed to August, so it's like strong Bruja summer. I am a spooky girl. I love my
Halloween's my
spooky
favorite. Halloween's
designs.
my
So
favorite.
I am bringing some fun stuff in August. So just keep your eye out for that. And we do have a lot of events coming up that we'll be announcing throughout. And I know you mentioned earlier, hey, we can talk about it. We can definitely put some fun events here in Las Vegas
Yeah,
and make the community grow and meet each other, even if it's just for a fun WOD. I just don't do burpees. I just want to let you know.
me either.
I gotta
I
get
You
don't.
back
I,
into
cannot
CrossFit,
force me to do
so
burpees, bro, but I will 100% show up for you.
I might
no,
do that
no,
at this moment.
no. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, the next event that we're planning is going to be a breast cancer awareness one. We're going to piggyback off of Barbells for Boobs, which I'm sure you've maybe
Okay.
done over the years. That organization no longer exists, but I now have an organization that, and my mom also is a breast cancer survivor. So I want to create an event, location TBD. We're thinking Rhino, CrossFit.
I love that
And
gym.
and then that way it's kind of somewhere central hub where people can come in.
Right.
And we're thinking about doing a spin on a team Grisabel. So Grace and Isabel, 100 reps total, 50 and 50, and we're going to like knock it out of the park. So there has a competitive angle to it. And then the funds that are going to be generated are something that we can then partner with Andrew of the Good Life Chef, and then help supply meal and education and nutritional like foundations, some way, shape, and form into the community here in Vegas, because it's, and again, CrossFitters love an excuse to go do a WOD,
Yes,
especially with a friend.
absolutely. Yes.
And but that one is going to be somewhere in October. So spooky design season comes in, boom,
Hell yeah. Hell
you
yeah.
know.
I'm
And
ready.
and the other thing that Seamus and I are working on is I'm going to just say it out here now, Seamus, to put it into existence. We're going to do a Lean for Halloween challenge.
Ooh.
Probably about I think we're going to do 4 weeks, right, bro?
Yeah, 28 days, like a short time, short sprint.
28 days. Short sprint, Lean for Halloween. That way you can get ready for your seasonal eatings, as we like to say. And that way you have like an understanding of how to like get yourself prepared for the holiday season that comes basically after, well,
Right.
to me, I always thought that Halloween was a holiday because Vegas and Nevada Day, they landed on the same day as Halloween every year. But that way people can, have something to motivate them for having all those fun, delicious things during the holiday season as well. So,
I love that. I
yeah.
would love to be a part of the breast cancer. My grandma is also a breast cancer survivor. So
Yeah.
if you are looking for sponsors, I got you. And I don't know if
Hey.
I'm gonna do 100 and something reps, but like I will be there to
No,
support
you
and
and a
cheer in
partner. You just got to
Spanish.
do 25 of each. 25 of each.
You go, I go. Yeah.
You go, I go. Yeah. Hey, the whole idea is community involvement.
Absolutely.
Let's
Yes.
let's get together again. Good food, good people, different
Yes.
organizations that are existing here. All the people that's apparel or whatever in our
Yeah.
community, and again, just do it for really for the
A
kids
good cause.
and
Yeah.
the Cancer Foundation. So
Yeah.
while it is a breast cancer event, I think we're trying to look for another partnership of like a kids like Cancer Foundation here locally as well, to then give
Okay.
some of the proceeds to. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
little moving parts. We'll get all the logistics out, but speaking it into existence is something that
Absolutely.
I firmly believe. So I mean, outside of that, Cinthia, everybody can find you at latinalifters.com, right? And then also, what's the IG handle as well? Latina
Latina
Lifters?
lifters as well. Yeah,
Okay.
Latina lifters.
So we'll have those listed in the show notes. Everybody, I'm sure you've already seen it because it's literally right there if you're on the YouTube channel. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, this was great. Hopefully people got a lot of value of understanding how we're all culturally diverse. We all have elements of our culture that we even work in to make sure our palate is not freaking bland. And again, I mean, ironically enough, I should have been born Asian. I love Asian cuisine. I love the way that it works in flavors. But then Asian and Hispanic, man, they go together. They marry so well. There's just something about it. If there's other additional questions or topics or things, I mean, this is just the start. We always, we've had one person back on. There were some tech issues, so we'll revisit any Q&A things that come up on the next go around of this episode with Cinthia. So thank you again. We appreciate you. And until next time, everybody, the macro perspective is out.